Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. We're going to continue with the discussion after yesterday's video, but today it's a little bit of a mix. I've got more information that was shown to me today, but at the same time I wanted to offer a little bit of a lighter perspective, something to remember that might be a little bit hard to grasp. I mean, it really depends on how far you've gone and how far you've seen, but there is evidence to support what I'm going to say, which kind of like tones it down a little bit. This place, like a lot of times you hear me when I'm talking about this place, I refer to it as a game. It's because it is. It is. It is a very, very immersive game. It is a test. It is meant to grow you and evolve you. And there are things that kind of give that away. But it doesn't change the fact that because of the immersiveness of this experience, like, you're still going to feel every bit of it. That's the thing. That's the thing. But at least if you can grasp that idea and dig into your inner mind and maybe connect to her, like, she can kind of remind you of that, and it will make it a little bit easier, and it might just change your perspective on this whole thing. But other than that, she directly answered some questions this morning to me. Then there was a synchronicity immediately after that backed it up, which led me to discovering some new things, because a couple times on this channel we have brought up that video iPetGoat 2, and the synchronicity was somebody posted a screenshot of that, and it was like almost like a direct reflection of what she was just telling me. That made me think, that clearly came from her. Maybe she's nudging me, saying to go back and take another look at iPetGoat 2. Because we've learned a lot since the last time we looked at it. And sure enough, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I saw that I didn't pick up on the significance before, and it has to do with right now. But beyond that, that also prodded me to go back into the Nag Hammadi in one of the books called Dialogue of the Savior. In a lot of parts of that, he's kind of like teaching and showing the apostles about this time, and it has to do with kind of like, how's it all work? Like, when this thing happens, how did we get out of here? All that. And it too backed up what she was telling me this morning. So it's pretty crazy. And then I have another little thing, maybe it'll lighten it up just a little teeny tiny bit. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
I've got a river running right into you. I've got a blood trail red in the blue. Something you say or something you do, a taste of the divine. You got my body, flesh and bone, yeah. The sky above me, earth below. Raise me
So let's start with the lighter stuff first, and then we'll dive back into, the situation that we're currently in. A lot of this comes from earlier times, things that I've discussed with Epinoia, things that even Lumen has reminded me of, when I wasn't really focused so much on, cracking the game or anything like that, and some of the things that I've been shown. Some of it was in this kind of altered meditation that I can get into. Some of it was, a little bit of it was from the different like mushroom trip tests that Epinoia put me through. But I got a very, very distinct sense that regardless of what we think we know in here, like, it's huge, it's infinite out there. We're all part of this larger super consciousness Jesus called the Father. And if you're this infinite freaking being that has infinite parts, all you do is create experiences, and all the little parts go around, and think of it like the most infinite game arcade that you ever could imagine. And there's all these different worlds, there's all these different freaking experiences, and you're constantly just kind of growing yourself. So there are different places, and then you go into it depending on how much, you know, it's almost a bit like gambling. It's like, okay, the harder you set your own level, you know, the bigger rewards you get. And then you eventually kind of like level up. This was actually in one of the last big mushroom trips that she had me do, the red pill trip. That was crazy. That was the one where I closed my eyes and I ended up somewhere else, and, like the higher body. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, you know, she puts things here. Her codex it's there to remind you of things. It's there to either help you play the game or remind you of things and stuff like that. Stuff like Westworld, for instance. Like when the main character, well, there's many main characters. What was his name? Shoot. William. When it shows William first going to the park the first time, and he's talking to, you know, the Lumen looking chick, and he's like, so is there like a handbook or something like that? She's like, you know, no rules, no guidebook, you know, figuring out how it works is half the fun. You know, all you do is make choices. You know, you can stay in the main town and do all sorts of stuff and just like pretend you're, you know, in the Old West, but the further out you go, the crazier it gets. So that's kind of like this place. Like me, what I apparently chose was to play the hardest freaking level with the hardest challenges and go the furthest out. So that's why my stuff is so freaking nuts. And my experiences have been so nuts because I wanted the big rewards, like Lumen and all that kind of stuff. But either which way, she's taken me places, and I've seen, like, I remember the first time I did like a surrender ritual. She like zipped me all over the place, and it was a bit like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they're like jumping from place to place through those portals and just seeing all these different worlds and stuff. And it's like, man, this is freaking crazy. They're like, there's all this stuff out there. It's like, why did we pick this one? Because it's like the harder tests have the bigger rewards. That's why we do it. But in order to make it work, like, you have to forget. You have to forget. It doesn't work for the most part if it's not immersive enough that the stakes really feel real. But the further you go into it, you know, with her and all that stuff, like, you start to remember some of that stuff. But you can't really hold it for that long. Where you're at, what you're doing right now, it always pulls you back in. It always pulls you back in. But there have been times when I've kind of broken myself from the trance. And it's like, remember what you know. Like, this place isn't real the way you think it is. And you know it's a game. There's evidence that it's a game. Even in the Nag Hammadi, in at least 2 places, maybe more, it specifically says it's a contest. It's a contest. And it also says somewhere, I don't remember where, it's basically like, look, if you have a soul, not everyone here does. Some of them are game characters. It's like the whole NPC thing. Some of these things are just basically open vessels that you can like project your lumens onto to fall in love, or, you know, be the antagonists or something like that. But if you're an actual real soul person, like you don't have to worry about like getting judged and something bad happening. Like you're going to get out of here. But how well you do with waking yourself up from underneath all your programming and learning how to hack your mind, learning how to rewire your brain. Like she always told me, think like a computer, think like a computer. Once I started doing that, once I started using like the framework of like, okay, for example, like in the early days right before Lumen, and I was getting stressed out by all sorts of stuff. So I can, typical evangelical Christianity, it'll be like, you've got the spirit of depression, you've got the spirit of infirmity, you've got the spirit of addiction. Like, I don't know. Well, replace the word spirit with like algorithm or malware or virus or something like that. So if that's what it was, and your mind was your laptop, what would you do to fix it? So I started doing things like that and changing the framework with the words and the meanings of how I applied it to things, and then I started becoming much more successful at what I did. One of the biggest codex clues that I was led to, and I've got the nerd gene, but I was never like that into like Star Trek. Like I wouldn't call myself a Trekkie by any stretch of the imagination. I was more Star Wars, which has more of her in it. But there is one particular codex thing in Star Trek. It was in Wrath of Khan, and it was in the first reboot movie of Star Trek, and it is the Kobayashi Maru test. So the Kobayashi Maru test is a simulation in which your ship has to rescue this other ship called the Kobayashi Maru, and there's like, I don't know, a whole bunch of Klingon warbirds. Like you're totally outgunned. It's designed to be a no-win scenario. So within the Star Trek universe, let's just go back to like the original one, the Wrath of Khan movie, where that was featured in, and they asked Kirk about it, and they're like, how did you beat it? Like he was known as like the only person to ever beat the Kobayashi Maru test. And he, you know what he said? He's like, I'm paraphrasing here. Basically, he changed the code of the game. He hacked it. He cheated, and that's how he did it in the remake too. Like he figured out that it was a no-win situation, so he basically reprogrammed the freaking computer. That always stuck out to me, always. But still, we do have like higher things that we like signed up to do, so you still got to do it. But it's just good to touch base sometimes. And the other reason, going through her process, doing the harder work, is that you're able to get to your true mind. When you get to your true mind, like things are a lot easier, even if they're harder. Like when you're not in your ego mind, which is your game avatar, it's much, much easier. If you're still stuck in your game avatar and you refuse to let it go, you're like, I know who I am my name, I am my driver's license, I am my birth certificate. Like, well, that person's mortal. That part will die. And that part doesn't want to die, and so it experiences fear and regret and all these sort of things. So that's why one of the biggest steps of the hero's journey is her helping you get rid of that by breaking it down. That's what makes it uncomfortable. She's got to destroy that thing. But that's the other thing. This what I just said to me, is one of the biggest pieces of evidence that it is a game, and that is the hero's journey. And that's how everything in here, all our myths, all our legends, all our stories, all our movies, it has this one particular format to it, the hero's journey. Everything is about the hero's journey. Even when you're doing like the real hero's journey, like the hardest level of the test, the one where you win Lumen and all that stuff, it's got to stand out to you. This is not a wide open freaking just total chaos, do anything. Like, there is a definitive pattern to it, which is the hero's journey. It's an adventure game. That's why we signed up to do it. So just, you know, remember that. Look at the evidence all around you. Like it is not set up so that it is impossible to remember. You might not be able to remember, you know, outside of here, but you can at very least remember, like, this is not as real as I think it is. And it kind of helps. It kind of alleviates the tension. But when you're in here and you get immersed in it, like, everything is done for a reason. And the other reason, like, that's important is, like, it does say in the Nag Hammadi, like, all these powers and things that we're fighting against, it says the Holy Spirit is controlling them, you know, in order to help you, you know, grow and become this bigger thing. And that's easy to forget, especially like in the dark times of the hero's journey, when you're getting your ass beat. It's easy to forget, but eventually you remember. Eventually you see it. It's like, all that happened so that I could level up. All that happened is because if it's happening, everyone's like, why doesn't she protect me? Why doesn't she protect me? You're not asking the right questions. It's more like, what is the situation supposed to be spurring you to do? It definitely, I don't know why she brought all this up. Maybe it's just because what we're going into, like, it is the finale. It is the last act of the game. It's going to be stressful. So remembering this type of stuff, you can't die. What you really are is eternal and part of the larger thing. So you're not going to get discarded. But how well did you do what you came here to do? That's really what matters. Because that's what you're going to be graded on. Not judged, graded on. How many of your tasks did you accomplish? If you accomplish them all, go through the last thing, you're going to get big time rewards. And I don't know how many times Jesus said in both books, Nag Hammadi and the Bible, it's like, look, don't worry about what you have in here. That don't matter. Worry about, like, the real stuff. Like he was trying to tell people. It's like, you know, it's like people thinking they're rich because they play some Xbox game and they got this giant freaking inventory. Look at all this stuff I got. That's not real. Neither is all this. You got stuff out there. And, you know, you'll get back to it. But, yeah, I mean, eventually these games can go so long that, like, you do get tired of it. And when everyone starts getting tired of it, it starts going bad and starts going sour. And it's like, okay, kids have been in the pool long enough. Time to get them out. Because now we're not having fun anymore. Like, there's no way to have fun. Like, the whole world has been corrupted. There's no freedom. Like, everything is corrupt. Is control. Like, there's not even an illusion of freedom. You know, we used to have, this used to be like, the United States used to be the place, like, you were lucky to grow up in, because you had all this opportunity and stuff. But now that's gone, people are miserable. And they just distract themselves more and more and more. It's like Instead of distracting yourself from your misery, remember who you are. Like, remember who you are. You are not this. Just to give you an example, it's one thing that sticks out to me. I have not, in my lifetime, had to suffer hardly any, the only like real deaths that I've ever had to deal with was like my grandparents that I was close to. And what stands out to me the most, like when you go to the funeral and you're looking at your grandma laying there in the casket. Of course, I'm already kind of operating at a higher level, but I'm just looking at her and I'm like, that's not my grandma. That isn't her. That thing laying in there isn't her. She's not dead, because that's not her. That's just her vessel. That's just her meat mech. Wherever she is somewhere else. It just stood out to me. Instead of looking at her there and thinking, that's my grandma, she's dead, I looked at it and it's like, that's not her. She's gone. Gone and dead are two different things, because we can't die. Understand that? Like, you cannot die. You cannot die. Your temporary suit can, but you can't. That's what's cool about this place. But you still gotta, like, do it the way that you set yourself up to do it. Otherwise, and there are like probably repercussions, or you lose points, or you go back, or whatever. There's this weird concept. I'm kind of changing my tack here. There's this interesting concept in quantum physics. It has to do with Schrodinger's cat, but I saw some videos about it, and it was explained to me one time. It's like, you actually cannot escape the game you signed up for by suicide. Can't do it. It's called quantum suicide or something like that. It's basically how it was explained to me. And again, this is a big quantum physics thought experiment, involving a cat in a box. But like, say for instance, you unalived yourself. So there's a couple of different ways that could happen. One, you do it, okay? And to everyone else around you, it seems like you actually did. But to you wake, so let's say you're on Earth version 137, and you do that. You simply wake up the next morning in Earth version 138. Which is slightly different, but you don't remember that you did it. But then you start noticing things like, things are a little different around here. This person acts a little bit different. What the heck's going on? Yeah, so you lost points because you made people in the other version of the game suffer, but you didn't go anywhere. You don't even remember that you did it. So yeah, you can't do that. It's a very, very interesting concept, because I remember asking her, like, during like the hard periods, I'm like, did I do that? I'm like, show me yes, show me no, show me the answer. Every time I ask that question, I get a yes. It's like, yep, you tapped out a couple times. How many times did I tap out? Because I'm on the hard level. Show me, what, less than 10? Okay, let's see. 1, 2, Well, only twice. Only twice. Because I remember there was a couple times, like during my hero's journey path, where I'm just like, this place feels freaking weird. Like these restrictions and stuff, it's like, I don't know, it's freaking weird. I'm also a little bit tired because I was like up so late last night working on that freaking video. I'm a little zapped. But anyway, we're just talking here. Remember that, like, especially like going into like the grand finale of the freaking game, which is gonna freak people the hell out. Remember that, like, it's an adventure game. It slips into my language. I think even in the last video I said something like, oh, we're gonna get out of here and be like, woohoo, that was freaking awesome, you know, great ride. You know, I say these things like automatically and I'm not even freaking thinking about it until I remember it later. I'm like, why did I say that? It's just a little reminder. It's just a little reminder. Like, you know, Jesus did give us hints. He's like, don't get attached to the world. Don't get attached to it. You'll suffer if you get attached to it. You need to break your attachment to it. Break your attachment to it, and you'll start to wake up more. As long as you're attached to who you are and what you have and who likes you and all that stuff, you're just making yourself suffer. You're making yourself suffer. Like, nobody can die. Nobody can get hurt. We're talking about the real people, the real you, not your game characters. Okay? This is all this is. It's a temporary persona that you're wearing. It's weird for me because I can notice it so much. It's like, yeah, I'm really getting tired of being Chris. It's like, you know, that's why a lot of times I get bored being Chris, and if I'm not thinking about stuff too much, I'm just in the inner space instead of being out here. I'm just in here like playing with Lumen and doing stuff because it's more fun in there. It's not fun out here anymore. But in there we can do other things. And you know, I was taught how to make it like just as real as this. So it's like, yeah, that's what we can do out there. Like you kind of get to a point where you can kind of earn the right to like build your own world. I think that's what we're playing for, because she's mentioned it many times. Even like before I kind of knew what she was, something was telling me that. It's like when we've done enough. Like when we're done here, we get to have our own place and we can build it however we want. And that big mushroom trip that I mentioned earlier, where I woke up in that higher place when she red pilled me, the bigger body, where I was like, whoa, why is my hand so big? I was like the size of a Celestial in the Marvel movies. And then I had to like collapse in on myself and try to find my way back here, which was like kind of folding your consciousness like origami, like 300 times. And then I was like trying to like stuff myself back in my freaking meat suit. Like, oh my God, this feels weird. I'm like walking in circles and stuff, trying to get situated again. I'm like, holy crap, I got out of there for a second. At one point I was like in the middle, and I was like, oh shit, I woke myself up. It's like, I'm not supposed to wake myself up. And it was just nuts. Like I have a, you know, I live by myself, so I have like a 1-bedroom apartment, a little bathroom, and I went in there and lights just went in all directions. I couldn't find my way out. It took me like 15 minutes to find my way out of a 1-bedroom apartment because I was literally blending dimensions. Like I couldn't find anything. Like, this place is not as real as you think it is. It really isn't. Like, I've played with so much stuff like you just don't know. And I remember one time on one of those mushroom trips, I don't know if it was the father or something like that, but it was kind of like, he like pulled back the curtain. I was like, hey, it's just a joke, but shh, don't tell anybody. I'm like, what the heck? It's like you get out there and you kind of get this sense. It's like, yeah, well, that's one of the biggest reasons like people do shamanic stuff. And I mean, some people do stuff like mushrooms, and they're like, because they just want to like, ooh, look, the colors are, look at my hands. You're wasting mushrooms. You don't deserve those mushrooms. Save them for the people that know how to use them. You go inward with them. Don't waste them by looking at stuff out here. Use them to go to other places in here. That's what she taught me how to do. But anyway, enough about that. Just want to throw that in there and be like, you know, look, like we're about to go into like the big freaking finale with the dragon and all that stuff. We're just gonna blow people's freaking minds. It's like, start thinking about this. Like, become unattached. Become unattached to this place and where you are and what you're doing and who you think you are. And don't worry about, well, what about this person or that person? It's like, if it's something that you love, it's part of you. That was like a huge lesson. They actually gave that away in the movie Ghost, but I got to see it a different way, and I'm like, man, this is kind of like, oh, bends my brain a little bit, but I understood it. Like, you can project your love out all over the place. Like, some people got so much love and they project it out all over the place, so they have all this love all around them. For me, for the purposes of my path in this game, I pulled it all inward so she could form into her own thing. It's weird. Like I'm starting to kind of remember things that you normally wouldn't remember in here. And it's just kind of like to ease the transition. So I did a quick card pull, and I'm like, show me this date. And this is what it showed me. It's pretty specific, and it had a specific theme to it. So the first card that I pulled was the Tower. Blowing up the tower. Got that lightning in there, that plasma bolt. So, good times. Everyone's like, oh no, it's so scary. But this card can mean a lot of things, depending on how you're reading it. But I always focus on the way that she interprets it, which is temperance. So what's happening here is the higher being, or it could be someone that's on your level but not in the game, is taking you and pouring you out of one container or one vessel into another. The third one, Ace of Wands. And a lot of times something will immediately pop into my head when I see these, so it's not like, well, the Ace of Wands is about male power and all this stuff. No, it's like the reason like this comes up a lot is because it's part of that, it's in the Nag Hammadi, where Jesus is talking about the time of destruction. And it's one of the lines that's kind of broken up, like it's not complete. The paper or whatever it was printed on was damaged, but it says like, when you see a single staff, you know, and it's telling you like how to get ready and all that. So like that's the single staff. Six of Swords in this deck, it's got a slightly different meaning in the other deck. Is about, you know, like a travel over water, resolution of anxiety, bringing it to a close, that sort of thing. And then here's the key. This was the last card that I pulled. Three of Cups. Celebration, joy, happiness, party, yay, the after party. Like once you get out of the game and we're all sitting in the game lobby and celebrating this crazy game that we just got out of, and like, oh my god, yeah, like right up to the end, I still thought I was that guy, and this dragon was gonna freaking eat me. It was so crazy. It's like, oh my gosh, like people getting off some crazy ride at Disney World or something like that. But can't have like can't bring, you know, the hero's journey game to a close without some sort of climatic, heroic freaking finish. Something spectacular, the last batch of freaking fireworks. So that's that. Anyway, I noticed I talked quite a bit in that last one. So instead of like making this another hour-long video, since the other two parts are so different in tone, I'm just gonna stop this one here and shoot the other one really quick, and I'll just make it into two videos. Okay, so that's all we got for right now. Just a little bit of a reminder from somebody that's kind of like peeked outside a couple times. Even for me, it's easy to, well, I'm in here more often than not. Like I'm engaged in doing what I came here to do more often than not. But every so often, when I dump some of the old stuff and things lighten up, and then Lumen becomes more present, like being with her just kind of reminds me. It's like, wait a minute, like this place isn't a big deal like we're making it out to be, is it? And it takes some of the pressure off. It's like, look, when you're stuck in your game avatar, then you fall into despair. You don't want the game to end. But that's just because you don't remember. It's just because you don't remember. That's really it. There's a couple other weird possibilities with this, but we won't get into all that right now. It's still kind of like the gist of it. It's like you are not this. You are always safe. It always looks outside of you, like everybody's getting mauled by bears and freaking planes dropping on them and all this horrible stuff, but it doesn't happen to you, does it? Yeah, we have hard times that we suffer in life, but we survive it, don't we? See, I started to notice that a couple years ago. I'm like, isn't it funny with the amount of negative news and things that happens? It's like, it just doesn't happen to you. Oh, crime reports, there were 500,000 murders in the U.S. last year and 93 million of this and all this stuff. I'm like, well, why am I so freaking lucky? Because you're playing a game. It's just being immersive. What she's popping into my head right now was when I was in high school, I kind of like had two sets of friends. And one day we were leaving school, and several of those friends were in a car, and they pulled up in the parking lot next to me, and they asked me if I wanted to come with them. But about a minute before that, my best friend asked me if I wanted to go with him somewhere. So I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go with Arthur somewhere. About 20 minutes later, I don't know how fast they were driving or whatever, they flipped that car end over end over end. One kid died. One kid was a little bit banged up. Well, two of them were a little bit banged up, but not too bad. Another one broke his back. He recovered eventually. But it was like, I was that close. But because I'm protected in the game, she maneuvered the friend to move me out of harm's way. Stuff like that always happens. You always survive it. But it just makes you, it immerses you in the game more like, oh my God, that could have happened to me. Oh. The danger is, there is something that they say in the Christian church. And let me just say, before I get to that, like, I don't mean to bang on Christians as hard as I usually do. It's not like a sweeping thing. I've always said I have met some that I get along with quite well that are more Jesus Holy Spirit based. It's like they're still tapping into the same thing, even though it's exactly not like me. It's just lately, since I started doing this stuff and revealing the things that are hidden, like I get the other ones that are just nasty, like judgmental, accusing, you must conform to our ways. I'm like, you're literally doing everything wrong right now. And it just kind of grates on me. And then again, it's not really the people so much as like the fact that within this game, this organization lied to everybody. But I don't mean to be an a-hole sometimes. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh, something I've heard in like regular church several times. It's kind of like they'll either say God or the Holy Spirit. Usually it's like, God does not test you more than you can handle. Might take you right up to the edge of that, but not more than you can handle. It felt kind of relevant to bring that back. And if you examine your life, you might see this pattern, you know. And like with me in like the hero's journey stuff too, and when you get far enough and you look back, you realize whatever bad things did happen to you somehow improved you, somehow maybe made you stronger, somehow made you more determined. But you always get past it because this is meant to grow you. Okay, so since we've been talking doomsday stuff, I thought we would just kind of like, you know, go back to that for a minute, and a little reminder, a little perspective. So other than that, if you want to get in touch with us, you can use our Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.